25-year-old Min Jung had sworn to herself never to repeat her mother's mistakes, who had left the family when she was 6 years old. Every morning, looking in the mirror before leaving for work, she mentally repeated this oath like a protective spell against weakness and betrayal. Her father, Min Jung, had never recovered from the blow. 20 years later, his eyes still dimmed when he accidentally came across photographs of his wife in old albums. He never spoke ill words about her mother to his daughter, but silence sometimes proved more eloquent than any reproach. "Dad, I'll be late today," said Min Jung, tying her scarf. Seoul's autumn was unpredictable. The sun shone in the morning, but rain could arrive by noon. "We have an important meeting with potential sponsors." Dongo looked up from his newspaper and smiled at his daughter. In his gaze, one could read pride and slight anxiety, the same look he had on the day she first went to school. "Good luck, sweetheart. I'll make kimchi jjigae for dinner." Min Jung worked as a cultural events organizer at Seoul National University. Her current project, a large-scale exhibition of contemporary Korean art, was supposed to become the most ambitious cultural event of the year. But its implementation required serious sponsorship investments. On her way to the office of the marketing company Honggang Group, she checked her presentation on her tablet once more. Numbers, graphs, media coverage forecasts, everything had to impress potential investors. The office building of Honggang Group towered in the business district of Gangnam, its glass facades reflecting the morning sun. In the spacious lobby, there was an atmosphere of business success: marble floors, modern furniture, quiet instrumental music. "Miss Min?" An elegant woman in a strict suit approached her. "My name is Lee Sora. I'm a project coordinator. The sponsors are already waiting in the conference room." Min Jung nodded, following her down the corridor. Her heart was beating faster than usual. The future of the exhibition she had been working on for the past 6 months depended on this meeting. The conference room door opened, and Min Jung saw 2 men sitting at a long table. Her breath caught for a moment. They were so similar they seemed like reflections of each other. "Allow me to introduce the Park brothers," said Sora. "Park Han-yeol, our leading business analyst, and Park Jin-soo, security consultant." Han-yeol stood up first. Tall, in an impeccably tailored dark blue suit, with neatly styled hair and a calm, penetrating gaze. He extended his hand for a handshake, and his fingers turned out to be surprisingly warm. "Nice to meet you, Miss Min. I've studied your proposal, a very impressive project." Jin-soo stood up more slowly, and Min Jung immediately felt the difference between the brothers. The same height, the same facial features, but completely different energy. A black leather jacket instead of a business suit, slightly tousled hair, a mocking gleam in his dark eyes. "Cultural events aren't exactly my specialty," he said, shaking her hand. "But my brother insisted I be present. Says expanding one's horizons is useful." In his voice, there were light notes of irony, but not malicious, rather self-irony. The presentation went successfully. Min Jung talked about the exhibition concept, presented the cost estimate and media plan. Han-yeol asked professional questions about financial reporting and marketing strategy. Jin-soo remained silent most of the time, but his gaze never left her. "Do you have experience working with large sums?" asked Han-yeol, studying the financial part of the project. "Of course. Last year we successfully held a contemporary music festival with a budget of 800 million won. All funds were used strictly for their intended purpose. The reporting passed university auditor verification." Jin-soo leaned forward. "And what would you do if the money suddenly disappeared?" "Such things sometimes happen in large projects." Min Jung felt that there was something more in his question than usual investor caution. "We have a dual control system in place," she replied. "All transactions require signatures from 2 responsible persons, and banking operations are tracked in real time." "Very prudent," noted Han-yeol. "We're ready to become the general sponsor of your exhibition. Our company will allocate the necessary funds, 1,200 million won." Min Jung's breath caught. This was even more than she had asked for. There is one condition, he added. We would like to include a representative from our partner's family in the organizing committee. This will help strengthen business relationships. Of course, nodded Min Jung. And who will this representative be? My girlfriend, Park Lan. She's from a very influential family and has experience in the cultural sphere. Park Lan. This name seemed familiar to Min Jung, but she couldn't remember where she had heard it. After the meeting, the brothers escorted her to the elevator. See you next week, said Hanyul. Lan wants to personally meet you and discuss cooperation details. When the elevator doors closed, Min Jung leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. This meeting had gone better than she had dreamed, but for some reason left a strange feeling. Especially Jinsu's gaze, there was something both disturbing and attractive about it. The next day, Min Jung met with Lan in a cafe near the university. She immediately recognized her. It turned out this was her cousin on her mother's side, with whom they hadn't communicated for many years. Lan had hardly changed, the same sculpted figure, expensive clothes, and cold beauty. But something hard had appeared in her eyes that hadn't been there in youth. Min Jung. She stood up to meet her with a strained smile. How many years it's been? You've changed so little. Lan. Min Jung still couldn't believe this meeting. I didn't know you were acquainted with Hanyul. We've been dating for 2 years. Lan sat back down and elegantly adjusted her skirt. He told me about your project. Very ambitious. The waitress brought their order, Americano for Min Jung and green tea for Lan. How is Uncle Dongo? Asked Lan, though there was no sincere interest in her voice. Fine, thank you. He works at the same bank, recently got a promotion. And? Is there any news about Aunt Songi? Min Jung tensed. Her mother was a painful topic that she and her father tried not to discuss. No, nothing. She disappeared 20 years ago and never made contact again. Lan nodded, but something like satisfaction flashed in her eyes. I understand. She probably started a new life somewhere far away. People sometimes do that when they need to. Run away from the past. Something in Lan's intonation alarmed Min Jung, but she decided not to delve into the painful topic. Let's talk about the exhibition instead, she said. Hanyul mentioned that you have experience in the cultural sphere. Oh yes, of course. Our family has been sponsoring various cultural projects for a long time. We have connections with galleries, museums, private collectors. Lan took a gold pen and notebook from her purse. I could help with attracting additional exhibits and VIP guests. The next hour they spent discussing organizational details. Lan really understood the subject and offered valuable ideas. But periodically Min Jung caught her sister's strange, evaluating gaze. By the way, said Lan when they were about to part, you should be careful with Jinsu. What do you mean? He's not at all like Hanyul. He has a complicated past. Connections with questionable people. Hanyul worries a lot about his brother but can't influence him. Min Jung wanted to ask for details, but Lan was already getting up from the table. I have to go. See you next week. We have a meeting scheduled with potential exhibition participants. That evening at home, Min Jung couldn't concentrate on work. The meeting with Lan had left an unpleasant residue. Something in her sister's behavior seemed insincere, fake. Dad, do you remember Mom's family? She asked at dinner. Dongo froze with his chopsticks halfway to his mouth. Why are you asking? I met Lan today. She turned out to be the girlfriend of one of my project sponsors. Her father's face darkened. The Park family. I don't want you to get involved with them, Jung. But why? What happened? Dongo was silent for a long time, as if weighing whether to tell the truth. After your mother left, they blamed me for treating her badly. They said she was forced to leave because of my character. His voice trembled with old pain. I never raised my hand to her, never spoke harsh words. But they still blamed me. Min Jung reached out and covered his hand with hers. I know, Dad. You're the kindest person in the world. Be careful with them, sweetheart. Not everything in that family is as simple as it seems. The preparation for the exhibition was in full swing. Min Jung often visited the Hangang Group office, coordinating financial matters with Hanyul. He was always correct, professional, and incredibly competent. But sometimes she caught a strange sadness in his eyes, as if he was unhappy in his personal life. Jinsu appeared in the office less frequently, but each such meeting left her with a feeling of electric discharge. He didn't flirt openly, but there was something in his glances that made her heart beat faster. How is the preparation going? He asked once, entering the conference room where she was working with documents. Well, your brother is very helpful with organizational matters. Jinsu sat opposite and looked at her attentively. And do you like working with Lan? Quite. She really has good connections in the cultural environment. He leaned back in his chair. And do you know where her family gets such connections? As far as I understand, they've been involved in charity and sponsorship for a long time. Jinsu smirked, but there was no joy in his smile. Interesting way of money laundering, through charity. Min Jung shuddered. What do you mean? Nothing specific. Just thinking out loud. He stood up and headed for the exit. Be careful, Min Jung. Not all that glitters is gold. On Friday evening, an event occurred that turned everything upside down. Min Jung stayed late at the university, finishing the exhibition catalog. It was already late, the corridors were empty, only occasionally a security guard passed by. Leaving her office, she heard a familiar voice from the neighboring room, the conference room where meetings with major donors were held. The door was slightly ajar, and Lan's voice could be heard clearly. The problem with money transfer will be resolved tomorrow. The main thing is to cover all tracks before the audit begins. Min Jung froze. Lan was speaking in English, apparently with a foreign interlocutor. Yes, the shell accounts are ready. Large sums pass through cultural projects, and no one asks unnecessary questions. Min Jung's heart was pounding so loudly she was afraid they might hear her. She carefully approached the door. Min Jung suspects nothing. She's just an executor. And if something goes wrong, suspicion will fall on the boyfriend. He has access to all financial documents. Min Jung felt her blood turn cold. Lan was talking about Hanyul. He indeed had access to sponsorship accounts as the main coordinator from the investor. All Saturday she couldn't find peace. Could Lan really be planning to steal the sponsorship money and frame Hanyul? But why? And what did Lan mean when talking about money laundering through cultural projects? On Sunday morning, the phone woke her earlier than usual. An agitated Hanyul was calling, Min Jung, we need to meet urgently. Something terrible has happened. They met at a cafe near the university. Hanyul looked shocked. His usual composure had disappeared somewhere. The sponsorship money has disappeared, he said without preamble. Last night an unauthorized transaction was made from the main account. 1,200,000,000 won was transferred to an unknown account. How is this possible? Min Jung felt like she was falling into an abyss. I don't know. The bank is starting an internal investigation, but preliminary data shows that the operation was conducted using my authorization codes. So suspicion falls on you? Hanyul nodded. For now, I'm suspended from all company financial operations. And your exhibition? I'm afraid it will have to be cancelled. Min Jung felt everything she had worked on for 6 months crumbling. But even worse was the realization that Lan had actually implemented her plan. Hanyul, I need to tell you something. She told him about the overheard conversation. With each word, Hanyul's face became darker. Lan? He asked at the end. Are you sure it was her? Absolutely. I would recognize her voice among thousands. Hanyul was silent for a long time, looking out the window. Then he said quietly, so she's framing me. The person I loved for 2 years. There was such pain in his voice that Min Jung wanted to hug and comfort him. But she only reached out and touched his hand. We need to find evidence of her guilt. Who will believe us? She's from an influential family, and I'm now a suspect in embezzlement. Hanyul smiled bitterly. Even my own brother will probably doubt my innocence. That same evening, Jinsu came to Min Jung's house. She was surprised to see him at the door. They hadn't arranged to meet. I need to talk to you, he said seriously. It's about Hanyul and the missing money. They sat at the kitchen table. Her father was at work. He had a duty shift at the bank. I know my brother is innocent, Jinsu began. And I know who really stole the money. Lan, said Min Jung. He looked at her with surprise. How do you know? Min Jung told him about the overheard conversation. Jinsu listened attentively, occasionally nodding. Everything fits, he said at the end. I have information about her family. They really have been laundering money through cultural projects for many years. How do you know this? Jinsu was silent, as if deciding whether to tell the truth. My work as a security consultant isn't limited to corporate clients. Sometimes I get orders from people who want to know the truth about their business partners. You mean private detectives? Something like that. He shrugged indefinitely. In any case, I have contacts that help obtain information. Min Jung looked at him with new interest. This man was much more complex than he seemed at first glance. What do you suggest? Conduct our own investigation. Find evidence of Lan's guilt and clear Hanyul's name. What if we get caught? What if we break the law? Jinsu leaned toward her across the table. Min Jung, my brother is being accused of a crime he didn't commit. His career is destroyed, his reputation is tarnished. His eyes burned with determination. I'm ready for anything to restore justice. There was such sincerity and strength in his words that Min Jung felt something turn over in her chest. This man was ready to risk everything for his brother. All right, she said. I'll help you. Are you sure? This could be dangerous. I'm sure. Jinsu extended his hand for a handshake, and when their fingers touched, Min Jung felt a strange warmth spread throughout her body. The next day they met in a small cafe on the outskirts of Seoul, where Lan's acquaintances were unlikely to accidentally drop by. Tell me everything you know about her family, Min Jung asked. Jinsu took out a tablet and showed her several photos and documents. The Park family has been involved in cultural investments for 20 years. Formally, they sponsor exhibitions, concerts, theatrical productions. But if you carefully study the financial flows, it becomes clear that the amounts they spend on culture far exceed their official income. Where does the real money come from? Construction business, real estate trade, import of goods from China. Partly, quite legal operations, partly, gray schemes. Cultural projects are used to legalize funds of dubious origin. Min Jung studied the documents, trying to understand the complex financial schemes. And Lan is aware of all these affairs? She's not just aware, she's an active participant. In the family, she's considered the most business capable. She's the one who came up with using romantic relationships to infiltrate large corporations. So her romance with Hanyul was a calculation from the very beginning. She needed a person with access to large financial operations and an impeccable reputation, on whom guilt could be blamed in case of problems. Min Jung felt a surge of rage. How could someone so cynically use other people's feelings? But we don't have direct evidence of her guilt in stealing the money yet, she said. Not yet. But I know how to get it. Jinsu put away the tablet and looked at her attentively. Only for this, you'll have to play a certain role. What role? Lon must believe that you're ready to join her team, that you can be bought or intimidated. What if she doesn't believe it? She will. You're her relative, plus you're in a difficult situation. Your project is at risk of failure. People like Lon are used to thinking that everyone has their price. Min Jung thought. The plan was risky, but there seemed to be no other options to save Hanyul. All right, she said. What do I need to do? The next day, Min Jung called Lon and asked for a meeting. Of course, dear, Lon said in a sympathetic voice. I heard about what happened with the money. What a terrible situation. They met at a Korean restaurant in one of the expensive hotels. Lon was dressed impeccably and looked completely calm, as if stealing $1 billion was an ordinary matter for her. Poor Hanyul, she said, ordering bulgogi and rice. I can't imagine how he's suffering. All his life he was so honest, decent. And now such suspicions fall on him. Min Jung could hardly restrain herself from attacking her with her fists. Yes, it's terrible. And my exhibition is also ruined. 6 months of work, all for nothing. Oh no, dear, don't say that. Lon sympathetically put her hand on her shoulder. Perhaps we can find alternative sources of funding. I doubt it. Who would want to get involved with a project around which a scandal has erupted? Min Jung portrayed despair. Besides, I'm now associated with Hanyul in the eyes of university management. Lon nodded with understanding. I understand your pain. But you know, in such situations it's important to think pragmatically. Sometimes you have to adapt to circumstances. What do you mean? Lon lowered her voice and leaned closer. Our family has been working with cultural projects for many years. We have flexible approaches to funding. If you're ready for certain compromises, we could discuss cooperation. What compromises? Well, for example, some freedom in reporting. You understand, sometimes investors prefer that their investments not be tracked too carefully. Min Jung felt her mouth go dry. Lon was offering her participation in money laundering. I need to think. Of course, dear. But don't think too long. We have a project starting in 2 weeks, and we need someone with your skills. After lunch, Min Jung immediately went to Jinsu. He rented a small apartment in the Hongdae district, in an old house among narrow streets filled with bars and cafes. She took the bait, Min Jung said, barely crossing the threshold. She offered me a job in their scheme. Jinsu closed the door and led her to the living room. The apartment was modest but cozy, with books on shelves, an old leather sofa, a guitar in the corner. Excellent. Now we need to get concrete evidence. He sat next to her on the sofa. If she offers you participation in a new project, agree. We'll install a hidden camera and record her confessions. What if she suspects something's wrong? She won't. You're playing the role of a desperate girl who needs money. For people like Lon, this is completely understandable motivation. Min Jung nodded, but inside everything was trembling with tension. Jinsu, what if we fail? What will happen to Hanyul? He turned to her and took her hands in his. His palms were warm and strong. We won't fail. I promise you. There was such confidence and determination in his eyes that Min Jung felt fear recede. This man really was ready for anything to save his brother. Why do you believe in Hanyul so much? She asked quietly. Jinsu released her hands and leaned back on the sofa. Because he always believed in me. When I was a teenager, I got into bad company, started fighting, skipping school. Everyone thought nothing good would come of me. But Hanyul spent all his free time helping me with my studies, talking me out of stupid things. His voice became softer. He never gave up, even when I didn't believe in myself. And you changed? Eventually, yes. I went to the army, then to university. but I always felt I owed Hanyul too much. He's a model of decency, and Jinsu smiled bitterly. I'm still that guy who solves problems and not the most legal ways. That's not true, said Min Jung. You're risking yourself for justice. That makes you a noble person. He looked at her with surprise, as if no one had ever said such words to him before. Min Jung. Silence hung between them, filled with unspoken words. Min Jung felt her heart beating faster and faster. Jinsu was very close. She could see golden sparks in his dark eyes, feel the scent of his cologne. The phone ring destroyed the moment. Jinsu turned away and answered the call. Yes. Understood. I'll be there in half an hour. He put away the phone and got up from the sofa. I need to go. One of my informants found something interesting about the Park family's financial operations. I'll go with you. No, it's too dangerous. The people I work with don't like unfamiliar faces. But Jinsu approached her and gently touched her cheek. Please, trust me. I don't want anything to happen to you. The touch of his hand sent a wave of warmth through Min Jung's body. She nodded, not trusting her voice. 2 days later, Lan contacted Min Jung again. Dear, I have a proposal that will interest you. Can you come tonight? I'll show you how we work. Before the meeting, Min Jung met with Jinsu to get a recording device. This looks like an ordinary hair clip, he explained, attaching the device. But inside is a camera with a microphone. It records everything within a 5-meter radius. His fingers carefully adjusted her hair, and Min Jung tried not to think about how pleasant his touches were. Remember, you need to make her speak specifically. Not general phrases about flexible approaches, but clear admissions of money laundering. I understand. And one more thing. Jinsu took her hands. If you feel the situation is getting out of control, leave immediately. Your safety is more important than any evidence. The meeting took place in a private club in the prestigious Gangnam district. Lan met her in the lobby and led her to a small VIP room. Welcome to our world, dear, she said, seating Min Jung in a soft chair. 3 men in expensive suits and a middle-aged woman with cold eyes were already sitting in the room. Meet our team, said Lan. This is my uncle Park Myung-kil, our financial consultant Kim Song-jin, public relations manager No Jeongi, and curator Pa Chang-ho. Min Jung greeted everyone, trying to remember faces and names. These people looked like ordinary businessmen, but there was something predatory in their eyes. Lan told us about your situation, said Myung-kil. Very sorry that your project fell through due to carelessness of partners. Yes, it's a big loss. Both for me personally and for the university. But any crisis can be turned to advantage, Jeongi interjected. We offer you work on our new project. An exhibition of sculpture by contemporary Asian artists. Sounds interesting. What's the budget? 2 billion won, Lan said calmly. Half from official sponsors, half from private investors who prefer anonymity. Min Jung understood that private anonymous investors were the money being laundered. And what would my role be? You would be responsible for official reporting, Song-jin explained. Compiling documents for tax authorities, the university, sponsors. It's important that everything looks absolutely legal. What about real expenses? Lan smiled. Real expenses are our concern. Let's say the cost of exclusive sculptures from famous masters can vary significantly depending on circumstances. So you inflate the cost of artworks? We adequately assess cultural value, Chang-ho answered diplomatically. Art is a subjective field where prices can be very flexible. Min Jung understood she was getting exactly the admissions needed for recording. But she needed to dig deeper. Where does the money from these anonymous investors come from? Silence hung in the room. Lan and Myung-kil exchanged glances. That's not your concern, dear, said Lan. You just need to properly prepare documents. I understand, but it's important for me to know that I'm not participating in anything illegal. My uncle leaned forward. Listen, girl. Our investors are people who earned money in construction, trade, import. Quite legal types of activity. They just prefer that their names don't appear in cultural projects for family reasons. I understand, Min Jung nodded. What happened to the money that disappeared from my project? Lan tensed for a moment but quickly composed herself. What does that have to do with our conversation? Well, I'm worried about Hanyul. He's your boyfriend after all. Ex-boyfriend, Lan corrected coldly. After it became clear he was a thief, I naturally broke up with him. But you don't believe he actually stole, do you? Lan shrugged. Who else? He had access to the accounts, he knew all the passwords. Someone transferred the money to shell accounts in Singapore. Min Jung felt cold. Lan had just revealed information that wasn't publicly known, that the money was transferred specifically to Singapore. This meant she knew much more than she was saying. How did you find out about Singapore? She asked as casually as possible. Lan realized she had said too much. Alarm flashed in her eyes. Hanyul told me. Before we broke up. Strange. He told me the bank hadn't yet reported where exactly the money was transferred. The atmosphere in the room heated up. My uncle looked at Min Jung intently. Maybe we should stop discussing other people's problems? He said harshly. Do you want to work with us or not? Of course I do, Min Jung quickly replied. I just wanted to understand the situation. Then here's your first assignment. Lan handed her a folder with documents. Study these papers at home and prepare a preliminary estimate. We'll meet tomorrow evening. All right. Min Jung took the folder and stood up. And one more thing, dear, Lan added with a cold smile. Our conversations are strictly confidential. I hope you understand what violating confidentiality means in our circles. The threat was veiled but quite clear. Min Jung nodded and hurried to the exit. Leaving the club, Min Jung immediately went to Jinsu. Her hands were trembling with excitement and fear. How did it go? He asked, opening the door. Better than we hoped, she handed him the hair clip with the recording device. Lan let slip about Singapore. And we recorded enough admissions about money laundering. Jinsu connected the device to his computer, and they began viewing the recording. The quality was excellent, every voice was audible, every face visible. This is enough to hand the case over to the prosecutor's office, said Jinsu. But we need something else. What exactly? Documents that prove where exactly the money from your project disappeared. And preferably, the names of all participants in the scheme. Min Jung nodded and took out the folder Lan had given her. Maybe there's something useful here. They began studying the documents. Mostly they were standard papers for organizing an exhibition, but at the end of the folder lay a sheet with phone numbers and names. Look, Jinsu pointed to one of the numbers. This is a Singapore bank phone number. And here's the account holder's name, Lee Myongju. Who is that? I have no idea, but we can find out. He photographed the document with his phone. I have an acquaintance who works in international bank transfers. While Jinsu was calling his acquaintance, Min Jung continued studying the documents. At the very bottom of the folder, she found an old photograph, several people against the backdrop of a restaurant. Among them she recognized Lan and her uncle Myongkil. But what shocked her most was that her mother, Min Songgi, was in the photo. Jinsu, she called in a trembling voice. Look at this. He finished his conversation and approached her. Is this your mother? Yes. But how could she know Lan's family? Dad said they blamed him for Mom leaving. Jinsu carefully studied the photograph. There's something written on the back. Min Jung turned over the picture. There was a date, 21 years ago, and a short inscription, last meeting before S. S departure. S is Songgi, Min Jung whispered. But what does last meeting mean? Min Jung, I think your mother knew much more about this family than you think. Fragments of memories flashed through her head. Mom was always nervous in the last months before disappearing. She often received strange phone calls and cried for a long time after them. And once Min Jung saw her mother burning some documents in the yard. We need to talk to Dad, she said. Maybe he knows more than he was saying. Are you sure? This could be painful for him. I need to know the truth. They went to Min Jung's house. Dongo had just returned from work and was preparing dinner. Dad, we need to talk, said his daughter, seating him at the table. What happened? You look upset. Min Jung showed him the photograph. Dongo's face went pale. Where did you get this? That doesn't matter. Dad, tell me the truth about Mom. What really happened? Dongo was silent for a long time, looking at the photograph. Then he said quietly, I knew this day would come sooner or later. He got up and went to his bedroom. He returned with a small box that he had taken from under the bed. Your mother left this before leaving. She asked me to give it to you when you became an adult. But I couldn't. I was afraid you would hate me. In the box lay letters, documents, and several more photographs. Min Jung took the first letter with trembling hands. Her mother's handwriting was familiar and dear. My dear daughter, if you're reading this letter, it means you've grown up and are ready to know the truth. I didn't leave the family of my own free will. I was forced to disappear. Many years ago, I worked as an accountant in a company that dealt with cultural projects. I thought it was honest work. But gradually I realized that huge amounts of money from illegal operations were being laundered through these projects. When I tried to leave, they threatened me. They said if I told anyone about what I had seen, they would kill you and Dad. I was forced to stay silent and continue working. But then they decided I knew too much. They gave me a choice: either I disappear forever and never contact the family, or they kill all of us. I chose your life, my angel. It was the most difficult choice of my life. In this box are documents that prove everything I'm talking about. If something happens to you or Dad, use them. But be careful, these people are very dangerous. I love you more than life. Forgive me. Mom. Min Jung read the letter through tears. All her life she had blamed her mother for betrayal, but it turned out she had sacrificed herself to save the family. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Dongo hugged his daughter, because she asked me not to tell until you became an adult. And because I was afraid, if you learned the truth, you would want to find Mom or take revenge on those people. And that could have cost you your life. Jinsu was studying the documents from the box. These were copies of bank transfers, document photographs, telephone conversation records. Min Jung, here's everything needed to open a criminal case, he said. Your mother gathered serious evidence against the Park family. But it's been 20 years. Are these pieces of evidence still valid? The statute of limitations for economic crimes in Korea is 15 years. But if it can be proven that the crimes continued all these years, there are no limitations. Min Jung wiped her tears and tried to organize her thoughts. So we can not only save Hanyol but also achieve justice for Mom? Yes. But it will be very dangerous. When the Park family realizes they're being exposed, they might go to any lengths. I don't care. I have to do this. Dongo took his daughter's hand. Younga, think carefully. Your mother sacrificed herself to protect us. Shouldn't we stay safe? No, Dad. Mom sacrificed herself because she was alone against an entire criminal organization. But now we're not alone. She looked at Jinsu. We have allies and evidence. It's time to end this. The next day Min Jung met with Lan as agreed. But now she knew the truth and could barely contain her rage. How are things with the documents? asked Lon, meeting her in the same club. Everything's ready. Min Jung handed her a folder with prepared papers. But I have a few questions. I'm listening. Yesterday I found some old things at home and came across an interesting photograph. Min Jung showed the picture with her mother. Did you know my mom? Lan's face changed for a moment, but she quickly composed herself. Your mother? No, I don't remember such a person. Although. She pretended to study the photo carefully. Perhaps she worked in one of the companies we cooperated with. But it was so long ago. 20 years ago. Ah yes, I was still a student then. I remember those times poorly. Min Jung understood that Lon was lying. Anxiety could be read in her eyes. What do you remember about that time? Nothing special. Ordinary family affairs, studies. Lon was beginning to get nervous. Why do you need this? I just want to learn more about Mom. She left when I was little. I understand. But now it's better to focus on the future, not the past. Lon stood up. Come on, let me show you where our exhibition will take place. They left the club and went to one of the galleries in central Seoul. On the way, Lon checked her phone several times and nervously looked around. Lon, is everything all right? Yes, of course. I'm just waiting for an important call. At the gallery, they were met by a man about 50 in an expensive suit. Meet Mr. Hwan, the gallery owner, said Lon. And this is Min Jung, our new project coordinator. Hwan greeted her coldly and immediately took Lon aside for a private conversation. Min Jung remained looking at the exhibited paintings, but could hear their whispers. The girl asks too many questions. Maybe we should postpone. No, too late to back down. The conversation was interrupted when Min Jung approached them. Excuse me for interrupting. Lon, could I see the list of artists who will participate in the exhibition? Of course, dear. Lon handed her a tablet. Everything is detailed here. Min Jung scrolled through the list, memorizing names and prices. The sums were astronomical. Some sculptures were valued at hundreds of millions of won. Are these artists very famous? The most promising young talents of Asia, answered Hwan. Their works are growing in price very quickly. Could I see the actual works? Lon and Hwan exchanged glances again. Unfortunately, the sculptures haven't been delivered yet, said Lon. They're stored in a special warehouse with climate control. I see. When will they be brought? The day before the exhibition opening. Min Jung understood that the sculptures either didn't exist at all or were cheap fakes. The entire scheme was built on inflating the cost of non-existent artworks and thus legalizing criminal proceeds. When they returned to the club, Lon received a phone call. Yes, I understand. All right, we'll meet tomorrow. She finished the conversation and turned to Min Jung. Dear, tomorrow we have an important meeting with the main investors. Are you ready to present the final estimate? Of course. Excellent. But there's one condition, the meeting will be at a country house. There's more confidentiality there. Min Jung's heart sank. An isolated place, no one around, this could mean only one thing. Couldn't we meet here, in the city? Unfortunately, no. Our partners are very cautious. Lon smiled, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Don't worry, we'll take you by car and bring you back. Min Jung understood she had fallen into a trap. Lon obviously suspected something and wanted to test her in an isolated place. All right, she said as calmly as possible. What time do we meet? At 7 in the evening. A car will pick you up at the university. Min Jung nodded and said goodbye. Leaving the club, she immediately called Jinsu. I think they've exposed me, she said as soon as he answered. Lon is calling me to a meeting at a country house tomorrow. It's a trap. Don't go anywhere. but if I don't come, they'll understand I was deceiving them. And then we'll lose all the evidence. Min Jung, your life is worth more than any evidence. She stopped in the middle of the street. Jinsu, what if we use this meeting? What if you follow me and record everything that happens there? Too risky. What if they try to hide after tomorrow? What if this is our last chance to get full confessions? Long silence on the line. Where are you now? Near Gangnam Metro Station. Wait for me, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Jinsu arrived on a black motorcycle. He handed Min Jung a helmet and helped her get on behind him. Where are we going? To my friend. He'll help us prepare for tomorrow's operation. They went to an industrial district on the outskirts of Seoul. They stopped at a small office with assigned technical service. Jinsu's friend turned out to be a young guy about 30 with intelligent eyes and tattoos on his arms. Min Jung, this is Kang Minu, an electronic security specialist. Minu, this is the girl I told you about. Minu nodded and led them to a back room filled with computers and various equipment. Jinsu explained the situation, he said. Tomorrow you have to go into a criminal's den, and we need to ensure your safety. He showed Min Jung a small device the size of a coin. This is a GPS tracker with emergency signal transmission function. If you press it 3 times in a row, we'll receive a distress signal and your exact coordinates. What if they search me? This device is disguised as a button. Minu carefully attached it to Min Jung's jacket. From the outside it looks like an ordinary button, but inside is a transmitter. Jinsu was studying maps on the computer. What if they take her to a place where there's no cellular connection? The device also works via satellite. Range, 300 kilometers from Seoul. And what will you do when you receive the distress signal? We have a team, said Jinsu. People who worked with me before. If something goes wrong, we'll come with the police. Min Jung felt fear battling with determination in her chest. What if I just don't go to this meeting? Then they'll understand you were deceiving them. And they'll start hiding. Jinsu approached her and took her hands. But if you're not ready to risk it, we'll find another way. No. Min Jung shook her head decisively. I have to do this. For Mom, for Hanyol, for all the people they deceived. Are you sure? Yes. Jinsu hugged her tightly. Then we'll do everything to get you home alive and well. The next day Min Jung could barely concentrate on work. All day she mentally rehearsed the upcoming meeting, trying to anticipate possible questions and traps. At 6 in the evening she was already at the university's main entrance. Exactly at 7 a black car with tinted windows pulled up. Miss Min? Asked the driver, lowering the window. Yes, that's me. She got in the back seat. Besides the driver, there was no one else in the car, which calmed her a little. They drove for more than an hour, getting far beyond Seoul's borders. The road led through hills covered with autumn forest. The sun was already setting, and it was getting darker around them. Finally they approached a large house in traditional Korean style, surrounded by a high fence. The guards at the gate let them through without checking documents. Lan met Min Jung at the threshold. Welcome, dear. How was the trip? Fine, thank you. Beautiful place. Yes, it's very quiet and peaceful here. An ideal place for serious conversations. The house inside was luxuriously furnished, antique furniture, expensive paintings, traditional Korean screens. But Min Jung noticed that all windows were covered with heavy curtains, and 2 men in black suits stood near the entrance. Let's go to the living room, said Lan. Everyone's already gathered. In the spacious living room sat people familiar to Min Jung, Lan's uncle Myung Kil, manager Jeonggi, financier Song Jin, and curator Chang Ho. But there were also new faces, an elderly man with gray hair and a stern face, and a young woman with predatory eyes. Meet my father, Park Jong-go, and my aunt, Park Sunja, said Lon. They lead our family business. Min Jung greeted everyone, trying to hide her excitement. Lan's father studied her especially attentively. Suspicion and cold calculation could be read in his gaze. Please, sit down, Lon pointed to a chair in the center of the room. Min Jung sat and looked around at those gathered. She felt like she was at an interrogation. Lon told us about your desire to work with our family, Jung began. But before making a final decision, we'd like to ask you a few questions. Of course. First question, why did you decide to cooperate with us? The university will surely offer you other projects. After the exhibition failure, my reputation suffered seriously. University management thinks I choose partners poorly. Min Jung tried to speak convincingly. And your family offers good money and interesting work. Second question, what do you know about our business? That you deal with cultural projects and work with private investors who prefer anonymity. And this doesn't bother you? No. Many wealthy people don't like publicity. Jungo nodded and exchanged a glance with his daughter. Third question, what happened to the money from your project? Min Jung felt her pulse quicken. This question was a trap. Han Yeol stole it. At least, that's what the police think. And what do you think? I think Han Yeol couldn't have done it. He's too honest a person. She paused. But someone obviously had access to his passwords and codes. Interesting theory. Do you have any guesses who it could have been? Min Jung understood that her fate was being decided now. If she answered incorrectly, she wouldn't leave this house alive. Perhaps someone from the bank staff. Or hackers. Nowadays any system can be hacked. Jungo looked at her for a long time, as if trying to look into her soul. Last question, you don't happen to know Han Yeol's brother, Jinsu? I've seen him a couple of times at the office. Why? He's interested in our family. Asks questions, makes inquiries. Jungo's eyes narrowed. We're wondering if he's trying to use you to get information. I don't understand what you mean. We barely know each other. Good. Jungo stood up. Then let's get down to business. Lon opened her laptop and showed Min Jung files. Here are the documents for our new project. Study them and tell me if you can prepare such reporting. Min Jung began looking through the documents. What she saw exceeded all her expectations. The Park family planned to launder more than 5 billion won through the exhibition. The documents specified exact amounts, accounts, names of shell companies. These are very serious amounts, she said, trying to hide her shock. Yes, our business is expanding, said Sunja. That's why we need reliable people. What if auditing agencies become interested in such large expenditures on art? That won't happen, my uncle answered calmly. We have people in the right departments. Min Jung understood she was getting invaluable information for the investigation. But at the same time she felt that the Park family trusted her less and less. May I ask a question? She said. What will happen if I refuse to participate in the project? Ominous silence hung in the room. Jungo slowly approached her. Why might you refuse? Well, if I suddenly decide it's too risky for my career. I see. He sat opposite her. Min Jung, you're a smart girl. And I think you understand that you already know too much to simply walk away. The threat was spoken in a calm voice, but that only made it more frightening. What do you mean? I mean you're now part of our family. And family is forever. Min Jung felt her blood turn cold. She had fallen into a trap. What if I agree to work with you? Then everything will be wonderful. You'll get good money, interesting work, protection of our family. Jungo smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. But if you suddenly change your mind or try to betray us, well, you understand. Min Jung nodded, not trusting her voice. Excellent. Then tomorrow you start working. Lan closed the laptop. And now we'll take you home. May I use the bathroom? Of course. Lan will show you where it is. Lan led her to a bathroom at the far end of the house. Left alone, Min Jung quickly pressed the disguised button 3 times, sending a distress signal. Then she washed her face with cold water, trying to calm down. When they returned to the living room, Django was talking on the phone. Yes, tomorrow morning. Make sure no one's left. Burn all documents. He finished the conversation and addressed Min Jung, ready to go home? Yes. But when they went outside, Min Jung saw that not one car had brought her, but 3. And in each sat men in dark suits. Why so many cars? She asked, trying not to show fear. Caution, dear, answered Lan. In our time you need to be ready for anything. Min Jung got in the middle car with Lan. When the convoy started moving, she realized they weren't going toward Seoul, but deeper into the mountains. We are going to my house, right? Of course, dear. Just a small detour, we need to stop by one partner. Min Jung felt panic. They had deceived her. Perhaps they were taking her to be killed. She discreetly felt for the button transmitter and pressed it 3 times again. If only Jinsu would receive the signal. The cars had been driving along a winding mountain road for half an hour. Min Jung could see in the rearview mirror that several more vehicles were following them, obviously the Park family's security. Lan, we've been driving for a long time. Where are we heading? Be patient a little longer, dear. We'll be there soon. But there was no warmth in Lan's voice, only cold determination. Finally, the convoy stopped near an abandoned warehouse in an industrial zone. There wasn't a soul around, only empty buildings and rusty containers. Get out, said Lan. Min Jung got out of the car on trembling legs. Men in dark suits surrounded her in a tight ring. Django appeared. Min Jung, I'm afraid I wasn't completely honest with you. What do you mean? We know you're working with Jinsu. We know you've been recording our conversations and gathering evidence. Min Jung's heart sank. I don't understand. Don't pretend. Django took out his phone and showed her photographs. Here you are leaving Jinsu's apartment. Here you're meeting in a cafe. And here you're riding together on a motorcycle. They had been followed. All this time they thought they were acting secretly, but the Park family knew their every move. The only question is what exactly you managed to find out and to whom you passed the information, Django continued. And you're going to tell us about it. I don't know anything. One of the guards grabbed her arm and painfully twisted it behind her back. Don't make us use force, said Lan. Just tell us everything you know, and we'll make your death quick. Death? Min Jung felt terror. Of course. You didn't think we'd let you go? You know too much. Like your mother 20 years ago. Mother? What did you do to my mother? Django smirked. Your mother was a very stubborn woman. We offered her to simply disappear and not interfere in our affairs anymore. But she tried to go to the police. You killed her? Not immediately. First we tried to negotiate. But when she refused to stay silent, he shrugged. There was no choice. Min Jung felt the world collapsing. All her life she thought her mother had abandoned them, but it turned out she had been murdered. Where is she? Where is my mother's body? That's unimportant. The main thing is that soon you'll be reunited with her. Django nodded to the guards, and they dragged Min Jung toward the warehouse. She resisted, screamed, but who could hear her in this deserted place? Suddenly the roar of motorcycles sounded in the darkness. Several headlights illuminated the area, blinding the guards. What the hell? Django shouted. People in dark clothes and helmets jumped off the motorcycles. One of them, Min Jung recognized the gate, was Jinsu. "Release the girl," he shouted. The Park family guards rushed to their cars for weapons, but Jinsu's people were faster. A fight broke out. Jinsu broke through to Min Jung and freed her from capture. "Are you all right?" "Yes." "How did you find us?" "Your signal. We followed you from the beginning, but kept our distance." Lan tried to run, but one of Jinsu's men blocked her way. "No one's going anywhere," said Jinsu. "Django SSI, I'm afraid the game is over." "You think we'll surrender without a fight?" Django pulled out a pistol. "I don't advise shooting." Jinsu pointed to the road where blue police lights were already flashing. "The police are on their way." Indeed, several police cars surrounded the warehouse area. Armed policemen jumped out of them. "Drop your weapons." "Hands up." The Park family guards, realizing resistance was useless, surrendered. Django and Lan also raised their hands. A senior detective approached Min Jung. "Miss Min, we have a warrant for the arrest of Park family members. We received recordings of your conversations and documents provided by Mr. Park Jinsu. This is enough to open a criminal case." "What about my mother?" "They said they killed her." "We will definitely investigate this case. If there's evidence of murder, the guilty will be punished." Lan, who was already being handcuffed, shouted to Min Jung, "Think you've won? We have people in the prosecutor's office, in court. We'll be out in a couple of months." "You won't," the detective answered calmly. "We have recordings of your phone conversations with these people. The corruption network will be completely exposed." Jinsu hugged Min Jung, who was trembling from the stress she had endured. "It's over. You're safe. What about Hanyol? What will happen to him?" "Tomorrow he'll be completely rehabilitated. The bank is already ready to make official apologies." Min Jung pressed against Jinsu's chest and cried, from relief, from grief for her mother, from all the horror she had experienced. "Shoo, shoo," he whispered, stroking her hair. "The worst is behind us." A week after the Park family's arrest, police called Min Jung to give additional testimony. Detective Lee, who was handling the case, met her in his office with a serious expression. "Miss Min, I have news about your mother. Good and bad." Min Jung sat in the offered chair, preparing for the worst. "The bad news is that Django wasn't lying. Your mother was indeed killed 20 years ago. We found her body." "Where?" "In the forest outside the city, where the Park family had a country house. We searched the area based on testimony from one of those arrested who agreed to cooperate with the investigation." Min Jung closed her eyes, processing this information. For 20 years she thought her mother was living a new life somewhere, but she had been lying in an unmarked grave all this time. "And the good news?" "The good news is that your mother turned out to be a real hero. We found a hiding place where she had hidden copies of all the documents she had gathered against the Park family. This evidence will help us put them away for a very long time." The detective showed her a thick folder. "Your mother knew she was risking her life, but continued gathering evidence. She wanted to protect other people from these criminals." May I see the documents?" "Of course." Min Jung leafed through the folder with trembling hands. There were bank statements, photographs, telephone conversation records, even audio recordings on old cassettes. Her mother had worked like a real detective, risking her own life. On the last page lay a letter addressed personally to her. "My dear Jung, if you're reading this, it means the truth has finally come out. I know you'll blame yourself for not being able to save me. But it's not your fault. I'm doing this not only for our family, but for all those people who are being deceived and robbed by these criminals. If my death helped stop them, then it wasn't in vain. Live happily, my sunshine. Find a person who will love and protect you." Don't be afraid to trust your heart. I will always be with you. Mom. Min Jung cried reading these lines. Her mother knew she was going to her death, but thought about her until the last minute. Detective, what will happen to the Park family? Django and Lon will get life sentences for murder and organizing a criminal organization. Other family members, from 10 to 20 years in prison. The detective closed the folder. And all stolen money will be returned to victims of their fraud. Including the money from my project? Yes. The bank has already begun the return procedure. Your exhibition will be able to take place. Min Jung nodded, but understood that after everything she had experienced, ordinary work would never be the same. Detective, may I bury Mom properly? Of course. The body will be turned over to you after the examination is completed. Leaving the police station, Min Jung saw Jinsu waiting for her. He was sitting on a bench in the square across the street, and concern could be read on his face. How did it go? He asked, hugging her. They found Mom. She's been dead for 20 years. Jinsu held her tighter. I'm so sorry. But I learned the truth. Mom was a hero, not a traitor. They sat in silence for a long time, watching autumn leaves falling from the trees. Finally Min Jung asked, how is Henyeol? How is he handling all this? It's hard. He loved Lon for 2 years, and it turned out she was just using him. Jinsu sighed. But he's a strong person, he'll manage. What did he say? About us? Jinsu turned to her. What do you mean? Well, he sees that there's something between us. How does he feel about it? Min Jung, what is there between us? She blushed. Indeed, they had never talked about this directly. I don't know. But I feel that you're not indifferent to me. Only not indifferent? Jinsu smiled. More than not indifferent, she admitted. Much more. And what are we going to do about it? I don't know. Min Jung looked into his eyes. What do you feel? Instead of answering, Jinsu leaned down and kissed her. It was a gentle, careful kiss, full of unspoken feelings. I feel that I've fallen in love with the bravest woman in the world, he whispered. And I want to be with her always. Her mother's funeral took place 2 weeks later. It was a small but touching ceremony. Her father came, several colleagues from the university, Jinsu with Henyeol, and even Detective Lee with the team that had handled the case. Min Jung stood by the grave, holding in her hands a photograph of her mother, the very one where Songyi was smiling, hugging her little daughter. Mom, I won't judge you anymore, she said quietly. Now I know the truth. And I'm proud of you. Her father put his hand on her shoulder. She would be proud of you, sweetheart. You turned out to be as brave as she was. After the funeral, Henyeol approached Min Jung. May I talk to you? Privately. They stepped aside from the others. Min Jung, I want to thank you. You risked your life to save me from prison. We just restored justice. Not only. Henyeol looked at her seriously. You helped me understand what real love is. Lon used me for 2 years, and I didn't even notice. I thought love was calmness and convenience. And now you think differently? Now I see how my brother looks at you. And how you look at him. This is real love, when you're ready for anything for another person. Min Jung blushed. Henyeol. I bless your relationship, he said firmly. Jinsu deserves happiness. And so do you. What about you? What will you do? Maybe I'll go to America. Our company is opening a branch there, and they offered me to head the project. He smiled. It's time to start a new life. That evening, Min Jung and Jinsu walked along the Hangang River bank. The city sparkled with lights reflected in the dark water. What are you thinking about? asked Jinsu. About how quickly everything changed. A month ago I was an ordinary event organizer, and today, she thought. Today I feel like a completely different person. Is that good or bad? Good. I'm no longer afraid to live. Not afraid to risk for what I consider right. And not afraid to love? Min Jung stopped and turned to him. I used to be afraid. I thought love was always betrayal and pain. Like with mom and dad. And now? And now I understand that mom didn't betray dad. She sacrificed herself for us. Min Jung took Jinsu's hands. And I understand that real love isn't selfishness, but readiness to protect each other. Min Jung, I want to tell you something important. I'm listening. I'm not a perfect person. I have a complicated past, questionable connections, and I don't always solve problems in legal ways. Jinsu looked seriously into her eyes. Perhaps it won't always be safe for you beside me. Do you think I need safety? I don't know. Every woman wants stability. Min Jung laughed. Jinsu, I just helped expose a criminal organization. I was almost killed, and all this for justice. Do you think instability will scare me? Then what do you want? I want to be with a person who won't abandon me in trouble. Who will fight for what he believes in. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him. A person like you. Jinsu hugged her and spun her around. So we're a team? A team. A month later, Min Jung sat in a cafe waiting for an important meeting. After exposing the Park family, her story received wide coverage in the press. Several people who had also become victims of fraudsters contacted her and asked for help. A woman about 40 entered the cafe, nervously looking around. Miss Min? Yes, that's me. Please, sit down. The woman sat opposite and took out a folder with documents. My name is Park Eun-jin. I saw you on television and thought, maybe you could help me. What's the matter? My husband is accused of embezzling charity fund money. But I know he's innocent. Eun-jin showed the documents. The fund director stole the money and framed my husband. Min Jung studied the papers. The scheme was similar to the Park family case, creating an appearance of legal activity while actually embezzling funds. Why did you contact me and not the police? I did contact them. But the fund director has connections in law enforcement. My complaint wasn't pursued. I understand. Min Jung closed the folder. You know what, let's meet tomorrow. I'll study the documents and consult with my partner. After the meeting, Min Jung went to the office that she and Jinsu had rented for 2 months. A small space in a business center with a signed justice agency. Jinsu sat at the computer, studying materials from a new case. How did the meeting go? He asked without looking up from the screen. Interesting. Another corruption scheme, another innocent suspect. Min Jung sat next to him. What do you say? I say we created the agency at the right time. Jinsu turned to her. There are more and more requests, and official justice doesn't always work as it should. In 2 months of work, their agency had helped solve 3 fraud cases, 2 corruption cases, and 1 murder. Min Jung was responsible for client work and press relations, Jinsu for information gathering and interaction with law enforcement. What do you think about expansion? Asked Min Jung. We could take on another employee. I have a candidate. Remember Detective Lee? He's retiring and wants to get into private investigation. Excellent idea. With his experience we could take on more complex cases. Min Jung's phone rang. An unknown number appeared on the screen. Hello? Good afternoon. This is Choi Minju from the Hangang law firm. We'd like to meet with you about a case. What case? We'd prefer to discuss it in person. It concerns international fraud involving Korean citizens. Min Jung wrote down the address and meeting time. Who was calling? Asked Jinsu. Lawyers. They say they have a case about international fraud. Sounds serious. Yes. And large scale. Min Jung approached the window and looked at the city. You know, sometimes I feel like we've taken on something very big. Are you afraid? No. On the contrary, I feel this is our calling. She turned to him. Helping people who have nowhere else to turn. Jinsu stood up and hugged her from behind. Remember how it all started? You just wanted to save the exhibition, and I wanted to vindicate my brother. And it turned out we saved many people and found each other. And this is just the beginning. Jinsu kissed the top of her head. What would you say if I made you a proposal? Min Jung started. What proposal? A business one. Jinsu smirked, seeing her expression. Let's officially register our partnership. Create a real company. And, do you have other proposals? I do. But it's too early yet. He kissed her again. First we should become the best detective agency in Korea. And then think about a wedding. Who said I'd marry you? Your eyes said so. That day when we first kissed by the river. Min Jung laughed and turned in his arms. Overconfident type. Realist. I know we were made for each other. How can you be so sure? We went through fire, water, and brass pipes. We saved each other from death. We built a common cause. Jinsu looked seriously into her eyes. And I still can't get enough of looking at you. And this is love? This is love. Real, adult, for life. Exactly 1 year after the first meeting with the Park brothers, Min Jung stood in the same Hangang Group conference room where it all began. But now she was here for a completely different reason. Miss Min, thank you for agreeing to help our company, said the new security director. After the scandal with the Park family, we decided to completely review our partner verification system. That's the right decision, answered Min Jung. Our agency will conduct an audit of all your business connections and identify potentially dangerous contacts. Jinsu sat next to her, looking through documents. Over the year, their agency had grown to a team of 8 people, including former Detective Lee, a cybersecurity specialist, and a financial analyst. What about the exhibition that never took place? Asked the director. It will take place in a month, Min Jung smiled. With the same name, but a completely different concept. Now it will be an exhibition dedicated to the fight for justice in contemporary art. After the meeting, she and Jinsu went to the university, where Min Jung still worked part-time. Her main time was now occupied by the agency, but she didn't want to lose her connection to the cultural sphere. How are things with Hanyul in America? She asked in the car. Excellent. The project is developing successfully, and he even met a Korean woman, a doctor from Los Angeles. Jinsu smiled. She seems to really like him. I'm happy for him. He deserves happiness. By the way, he asked me to give you this. Jinsu handed her a small box. Inside lay a ring, not an engagement ring, but a simple silver ring with an engraving, for courage of heart. What's this? A gift from my brother. He said you taught him to understand real love, and he wants to thank you. Min Jung put the ring on her right hand. Very touching. Speaking of rings. Jinsu stopped the car at the university and turned to her. I also have a gift for you. He took out a small velvet box from his pocket. Min Jung's heart began beating faster. Jinsu. Min Jung, we've known each other for exactly 1 year. During this time we've gone through dangers that usually fall to people in a lifetime. He opened the box, and a ring with a small diamond sparkled in it. You're the bravest, most honest, and most beautiful woman I know. Will you marry me? Min Jung looked at the ring, then at him, and felt her eyes fill with tears. Yes, she whispered. Of course, yes. Jinsu put the ring on her finger and kissed her. In this kiss were all the emotions of the year: fear, hope, love, gratitude that they had found each other. When's the wedding? Asked Min Jung, admiring the ring. Whenever you want. Even tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. In 3 months, when the exhibition opens. It will be symbolic. Everything started with a cultural project. As you say. Jinsu kissed her again. The main thing is that you agreed. That evening they had dinner with Min Jung's father. Dongo had been very worried about his daughter in recent months. Their work involved constant risk. Dad, we have news, said Min Jung, showing the ring. Dongo's face lit up with a smile. Finally. He hugged Jinsu. Welcome to the family, son. Thank you, Dad. I'll take care of her. I know. You've already proven it more than once. At dinner they discussed wedding plans. Dongo wanted a big celebration, Min Jung preferred a modest ceremony, and Jinsu was ready for anything as long as she was happy. Where will you spend your honeymoon? Asked her father. We're thinking about Europe, answered Jinsu. Min Jung has never been to Paris. Maybe Japan instead? Suggested the bride. The cherry blossoms are blooming there now. Anywhere, said Jinsu, taking her hand. The main thing is with you. After dinner they walked for a long time through nighttime Seoul, making plans for the future. The agency was thriving, personal life was settling down, justice had triumphed. It seemed that the web of temptation and deception in which they had found themselves a year ago had finally been untangled.